Hello! Welcome to another episode of the Google Ads Developer Mini-Series on logging and monitoring. In the previous episode, we sent custom client logs to Google Cloud Logging. In this episode, we'll build custom metrics on top of those logs and set up a dashboard to monitor our new metrics. We'll also see how you can use Google Cloud Monitoring to set up alerts to notify you when your metrics aren't where you want them to be. If you haven't already, be sure to watch the previous episode for guidance on getting your logs into Google Cloud Logging. If you find this video useful, make sure to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel to be notified of future videos. Now let's get started. We'll pick up where we left off in the Logs Explorer. Recall from the previous episode that we sent an elapsed time field, elapsed MS. With this, we can create an elapsed MS metric. From the left-hand navigation, let's head over to log-based metrics. Log-based metrics pull metrics data from the content of logs entries, either by counting the number of log entries containing a particular value, or by extracting information from the log entries. The Cloud team's documentation on this feature is excellent. I've linked to it in the video description for reference. Alright, let's create a metric. Immediately, we have the option for this to be a counter metric, which counts the number of log entries matching a given filter, or a distribution metric, which collects numeric data from log entries matching a given filter. A good example of a counter metric would be one that captures how many errors are in our logs. For instance, you could use the isFault value in our custom logs to create a counter metric for monitoring error frequency. For something like elapsed time, we want to get the distribution of different elapsed MS values, so we should make this a distribution metric. We'll call our metric elapsed MS. Give it a description. And specify MS as the units of measure. This filter selection section is where we extract the elapsed MS value. Since we sent our logs as a JSON payload, the syntax we should use for the field name is JSON payload.fieldName. So in this case, JSON payload.elapsed MS. We're also required to give a filter, but I just want to use any logs that have an elapsed time value, so I'll use the filter not JSON payload.elapsed MS equals 0. Have a look at the logging query language documentation linked in the description for guidance on filter syntax. Next, we can add a label. Labels let you group your metrics into categories based on other data in the logs. For example, if we want to group our elapsed time metrics by API method so we can see how latency compares for different methods, we would use a method label. In fact, that's exactly what we're going to do. We'll call this label method, give it a description, keep the type as string, and then under field name, we extract the value in the same way as in our filter. So that's and that's everything we need. So let's click Done, and then Create Metric. If we go to Manage Log Metrics, we can see our newly created metric. Now we can create a dashboard with our metric. So go to View in Metrics Explorer. Like I said earlier, I want to view the elapsed time data grouped by method. So here's where we can do that. Under Group By, select Method. And under Aggregator, I'll select Mean to get the average elapsed time for every 1 minute of data. Now I'll save my chart and create a new dashboard, which I will call Cloud Monitoring Test. Now you can see I don't have any data yet. This is because metrics are not retroactively populated with data from log entries that are already in Cloud Logging. In order to see data here, I'm going to have to set up a bash script to periodically run the getCampaign script from our previous video, which will send new logs that will get picked up by my metric. Of course, if you already have an application that's sending logs to Google Cloud Logging, you probably don't need that bash script. Now that I have some fresh logs data, you can see I have data in my dashboard. Nice. We won't create any other metrics right now, but I'd encourage you to create other metrics and dashboards to monitor things like request count by method, error count over time, success rate by method, or any other signals of system health. To be sure that we're capturing our API method, we can look at the chart legend by clicking Expand Chart Legend up in the top right. And right now I'm only using the one method, but you can imagine that this would be several lines depending on the different methods that are being used. Now that we have some monitoring set up, all that's left to do is set up alerting. For this, we'll head back to our logs-based metrics in Cloud Logging. I'll click on the menu next to my metric and select Create Alert for Metric. The alerting policy requires me to specify a rolling time frame to look at my metric and a function to apply. Let's keep this as a 10-minute window and change the function to 95th percentile. This means that the alerting policy will find the elapsed MS value in the 95th percentile for a given 10-minute window. The next section, Across Time Series, is for aggregating across multiple cloud resources. I only have the one, so I'm going to skip this. Next, we specify the alerting threshold. What value does the 95th percentile of elapsed time have to meet in order for it to be considered problematic? Let's say we want to receive an alert anytime 2 of our time series exceeds our set threshold. And we can set our threshold to whatever value is aligned with our application latency goals or SLOs. I'll set mine to 5,000 milliseconds or 5 seconds. Let's name this elapsed MS exceeds 5,000 MS. I don't have any notification channels set up, so I'll stop there, but there are many options for where to send your notifications, including SMS and email, among many others. That's it for our episode on creating and monitoring custom metrics. I hope you'll continue to explore these tools to gain a clearer picture of your application's overall well-being. As always, I hope you found this video helpful. If you have any questions or feedback, please let us know. Thanks for watching.